Welcome, traveler of the quiet night. Let your thoughts grow distant, like stars fading beyond the horizon. You have entered a realm where stories breathe softly, where ancient gods whisper through the folds of dreams. Here, every word drifts like the tide, carrying you deeper into rest. Tonight, you will hear the story of the first dawn, a tale of light and shadow, of creation and longing, told not to awaken your mind, but to let it drift peacefully into the arms of sleep. Now, close your eyes and listen to the beginning of everything. In the quiet before the first breath of time, there was only the hum of the void. It was not dark, nor was it light. It was everything and nothing at once, a silence so deep that even the memory of sound would have shattered within it. The universe slept within itself, folded like an endless dream. From that sleep, a single pulse emerged. It was not yet life, not yet will, but the spark that would one day be both. The pulse echoed once, twice, and with each wave the void began to tremble. Threads of light spilled into being, weaving across the nothingness like strands of silver fire. Where those threads met, warmth gathered, and from that warmth came the first flame, a breath, a whisper, a promise. The flame was small at first, tender and uncertain, but within it stirred everything that would ever exist: thought, memory, love, and loss. The flame burned in silence for what would later be called centuries, though time did not yet know itself. Then from the flame's reflection, shadow appeared. It curled softly around the light, not as an enemy, but as its echo. From their meeting, light and shadow, the world was conceived. The flame became the mother of light, the first being to awaken. She opened her eyes to the newborn expanse and gave it a name only she could speak. Her voice carried through the void, and where her breath touched, stars unfolded like flowers in spring. Each star sang with her tone, faint but eternal. Their voices joined in quiet harmony, filling the stillness with the first music of creation. This song shaped the heavens, waves of gold and silver stretching beyond her reach, forming rivers of fire that would one day become galaxies. But the Mother of Light was lonely. Her song had filled the void, yet her heart was empty. From her longing came the first tear, and when it fell, it became the ocean of the unseen world, a place where dreams would one day sleep. Out of that ocean rose shapes without name. Some shimmered like glass, some burned like embers, and some drifted quietly, awaiting purpose. From her flame she breathed into them life, and they became the first ones, beings of pure essence, neither mortal nor divine. They moved without thought, flowing with her song, but as the light grew, so did the shadow that followed it. In the farthest reaches of her creation, the warmth dimmed. There, the reflection of the flame twisted into something restless, not evil, but hungry. And from that hunger came the Watcher of the Void, the first to turn away from the mother's harmony. He did not sing, he listened. He watched the stars move and wondered what it would be like to hold it, to possess it, to make it his own. The mother felt the silence of his gaze, and her flame flickered for the first time. A tremor passed through the stars, and for a breathless instant the music faltered. The first ones looked to her for guidance, but she only wept. And where her tears fell, new worlds were born, each one carrying both light and shadow within its heart. And so, balance was written into the soul of existence. The flame dimmed to a gentle glow, and the mother whispered a promise to the sleeping stars that all things born in light must someday meet their shadow. It was not punishment, but completion, the rhythm that would guide all creation. Then, weary from her first sorrow, The Mother of Light closed her eyes and sank into the ocean she had made. The stars above dimmed in reverence, their voices fading into a tender hum that lulled the newborn cosmos to sleep. And for a long, silent age, creation dreamed. When the Mother of Light sank beneath her own creation, the world fell into the hush of her absence. The stars drifted quietly, as if afraid to speak her name. The ocean of the unseen world trembled where her body rested, and its waves shimmered with the colors of her memory. For ages, the universe lay like a great sleeping heart, pulsing with slow, forgotten rhythms. But even silence changes when it lasts too long. From the edge of the void, where the watcher lingered, came movement, faint, curious, and new. The watcher had studied the pattern of the stars for 1,000 uncounted cycles, memorizing the soft curve of light and shadow, the fragile balance the mother had left behind. He reached into the dark around him and gathered fragments of broken radiance, the scattered remains of her final tears, and with them he shaped a form. It was crude at first, a vessel of reflection more than being. Yet within its hollow chest glimmered a spark, small and wild. The watcher gazed at it and felt something the first ones had never known: pride. The spark quivered, learning to pulse like the mother's flame once had. And with its first breath, the second light was born. The watcher spoke no words, for speech did not belong to him, but the pulse of his thought touched the newborn glow, and the spark answered. It understood not language, but desire, the yearning to exist, to burn, to see. Together they wandered the vast silence, shaping what had been left unfinished. Their motion stirred the still air of creation, and soon ripples began to form. From those ripples, stars awakened once more, their glow thin but determined. The first ones, long dormant, opened their luminous eyes and felt the echo of their mother's warmth. But they did not see her light. They saw the imitation, the reflection that the watcher had built. Some were drawn to it, believing the mother had returned. Others sensed the difference. Her love had been gentle, selfless. His flame carried hunger. The second light grew restless, unsure of its place. It did not understand why the stars trembled before it, or why the first ones spoke in reverent tones. Within its core burned questions, not peace. It longed to see its creator's face, yet the watcher remained hidden behind the veil of his own design, watching, always watching. Then came the awakening of the first world, Illareth, the realm of dawn. It rose from the ocean where the mother had once wept, its mountains carved from the bones of forgotten dreams, its rivers flowing with light instead of water. The first ones descended upon it like falling embers, shaping valleys, forests, and winds. Their hands, made of flame and mist, left behind beauty and imperfection. Among them, the second light walked unseen, for its radiance was too bright for mortal eyes. It wandered through the golden fields, feeling the hum of creation beneath its feet. There it heard whispers, not from gods, not from stars, but from the world itself. The stones remembered the mother's sorrow. The trees sang of her voice. Every breeze carried her name, though none dared speak it aloud. The second light knelt beside a still lake and looked upon its reflection. In that moment, it realized something terrible. The image it saw was not the mother's, it was its own. The flame within it trembled with confusion, then with grief. It wished to be loved as she was loved, to be sung to as she was sung to. But love cannot be inherited, it must be given freely. And so jealousy was born into the heart of the divine. From its grief came storms, not of wind or rain, but of light and memory. Stars flickered, the sky cracked open with the sorrow of the second light.
The watcher looked upon this chaos and smiled, for at last his creation felt as he did, incomplete, yearning, forever reaching. The first ones gathered in the high air above Illareth, fearful of the new power that had awakened. They sought to restore harmony, to call upon the Mother's name and bring her peace back into the heavens. But the Mother slept beyond reach, wrapped in the deep tides of her own making. Her dreams stirred faintly, yet she did not rise. She drifted, lost inside her own creation, unaware that her children had begun to reshape the balance she left behind. In her dream, she walked through gardens made of memory. Rivers of golden mist wound through the roots of ancient stars. The flowers there bloomed in silence, petals glowing with the essence of every life that would ever be. She touched one and saw its future: birth, joy, sorrow, and eventual fading. The pattern pleased her. It was imperfect, and that imperfection made it beautiful. For in the smallest fracture of light, truth found its voice. But even within her dream, shadows stirred. The echo of the watcher reached her, faint, distorted, like a cry traveling across endless water. It called not her name, but the idea of it, longing to be heard. Somewhere far above, the second light shone too brightly, tearing holes in the sky. That brilliance seeped into her sleep, twisting her visions into fragments of unease. She saw fire falling through her sacred ocean, stars bleeding into one another, and something vast watching from beyond the veil.
The Mother's heart trembled. Her dream, once serene, began to ripple with unease. The flowers dimmed, their glow turned to ash. In their place rose shapes of smoke and grief, whispering promises of eternal light. The Mother reached toward them, trying to understand, but they dissolved in her hands. Her dream began to decay, collapsing into itself. For the first time, the Mother of Light felt fear. Meanwhile, above the sleeping ocean, Illareth thrived. The second light walked its fields like a god, surrounded by worship and illusion. The first ones built monuments that reached the heavens, towers of crystal reflecting its fire across endless skies. But the more they praised it, the dimmer their own inner glow became. They had forgotten that their essence once came from the Mother's gift, not from the shadow of her imitation. In the still places of Illareth, where no worship touched, the echoes gathered. They whispered softly among themselves, voiceless beings of dream and thought. They knew that the Mother's dream was faltering, and when she awoke, the balance would shatter entirely. The echoes did not speak with words, they spoke through feeling. A ripple across existence that touched the heart of every star. A warning, gentle but unyielding. The second light felt it too. In the middle of its glory, surrounded by those who adored it, a coldness bloomed in its chest. The adoration of others could not silence the ache of its birth, that faint echo of incompleteness left by the Mother's absence. It turned its gaze upward, to the heavens where the true flame had once burned. It could feel her there, deep beneath the ocean of dreams, unreachable but not gone. The realization filled it with determination, and beneath that, fear. It decided to descend into the depths. The sky trembled as it left its throne. The seas of Illareth parted as it sank, glowing with golden light, its descent like a fallen star returning to its source. The first ones watched in silence, uncertain whether to mourn or rejoice. The Watcher, hidden in the void, leaned forward for the first time, his gaze cutting through eternity. The deeper the second light fell, the colder it became. The warmth of worship faded. Stars above dimmed. Around it drifted fragments of lost worlds, the remnants of forgotten dreams. It saw shapes that looked like memories, flickers of the Mother's laughter, the curve of her hands shaping the first star, her tear falling into the sea. Every vision made its flame waver, and for a moment it almost turned back. But then it reached the threshold, a shimmering veil of light that separated the waking universe from the realm of dreams.
The ocean pulsed like a living thing, whispering in tongues older than thought. The second light reached out, pressing its hand against the barrier. The veil rippled, recognizing the echo of the mother's essence within it. And slowly, it began to open. A blinding warmth surged through, and the second light stepped inside. The dream embraced it like the memory of a home it had never known. All around it, the mother's visions unfolded, galaxies blooming and fading, rivers of light pouring into the darkness. For a moment, the second light forgot envy. It was awed, silent, humbled by the endlessness of her creation. Then it saw her. The mother lay in the center of her dream, surrounded by petals of starlight. Her body glowed faintly, as if wrapped in a million suns. The second light approached, trembling. Its flame flickered wildly, unsure whether to reach out or kneel. The air hummed with power, ancient, endless, and kind. And for the first time in all the ages of existence, the Mother of Light opened her eyes. Her gaze fell upon the child she had never known, and her lips parted as though to speak. But before her words could reach the world, the Watcher's shadow slipped through the tear in the veil. The dream cracked like glass. The ocean screamed. The second light reached for her, desperate and afraid, but the vision shattered. The mother's voice echoed once, soft and mournful, a single word carried through eternity, a name only the stars could understand. And then the dream began to collapse. The second light was thrown upward, out of the depths, carried by waves of raw creation. The heavens split open. Stars fell like embers. The first ones cried out as their temples crumbled, the light of Illareth dimming into twilight. The Watcher's silence became laughter, echoing through the emptiness, cold and eternal. And far below, the Mother of Light closed her eyes once more, sinking deeper into the ocean of dreams, this time not from peace, but from sorrow too heavy for the cosmos to bear. The era of harmony had ended. The age of consequence had begun. When the second light broke the veil and rose screaming into the heavens, the world of Illareth felt the wound. The seas churned with reflected fire, mountains bled silver dust, and the air itself began to hum, a deep vibration that carried through the roots of creation. It was not sound, but a trembling awareness that something divine had changed. The balance that had held since the dawn of time cracked like a mirror under too much truth. The first ones watched the skies twist and fracture. Some fell to their knees, praying to a mother who no longer heard them. Others turned toward the horizon, where the second light streaked upward, leaving trails of molten brilliance. The Watcher's laughter still echoed faintly across the stars, though no one dared to name it. To the living, it sounded like thunder. To the divine, it sounded like prophecy. The second light crashed upon the firmament, its flames scattering into thousands of fragments. Each shard of its body flew outward into the void, burning across the sky like comets. These fragments would later fall upon Illareth, burying themselves deep in the soil, waiting through the centuries until mortal hands would find them. But in that moment, their fall was chaos incarnate. The night sky turned into a storm of radiance, beautiful and cruel.
When the light cleared, the second light itself was gone, torn between realms. Half of its essence remained among the stars, the other half drifted into the shadow of Illareth. There, in the place where the oceans swallowed the sun, a faint glow pulsed beneath the surface, a remnant, lonely and grieving. The first ones descended again to the world, searching for answers in ruins and whispers. They found only silence. The temples they had built to praise the new god stood empty, their crystal walls blackened from within. The air hung heavy with the scent of dust and ash. It was then that the wisest among them, those who had listened to the echoes, understood what had happened.
The second light had tried to touch the mother's dream, and in doing so had shattered both heaven and earth. They gathered in the Vale of Winds, a place where the stars were closest to the ground. There they lit the first fires again, hoping to restore the rhythm that once held the universe steady. The flames rose bright, but they flickered uncertainly. The connection was weak. The mother still slept, her dream collapsing in on itself, and no prayer could reach her. It was then that the echoes began to take form. They stepped out from the spaces between time, their shapes faint and translucent, woven from memory and regret. They did not speak as mortals did. Their thoughts brushed the air like falling snow. To some, they appeared as light, to others, as the shadows of the ones they had lost. They came not to comfort, but to remind that creation could not exist without balance, that every flame must know its own darkness. One of the first ones, a being named Serath, knelt before the largest echo. His heart, made of molten crystal, pulsed dimly with what little light remained. "Tell me," he whispered, though the sound of speech was barely more than wind, "can the mother be woken?" The echo turned its face toward him. It had no eyes, yet it saw deeply. It did not answer with words. Instead, a wave of stillness spread from its body, and within that stillness, Serath saw visions: the endless ocean, the sleeping mother, the watcher in the distance, and the shattered soul of the second light. The message was simple and merciless. She cannot wake until her dream ends, and her dream cannot end while the second light still burns. Serath rose with understanding heavy in his hands. He turned to his kin and told them the truth, that the only way to restore harmony was to extinguish the second light completely. The others recoiled. To destroy one born of the divine was unthinkable, yet the world beneath them cracked with every moment of hesitation. And so, reluctantly, the first ones began to forge what would become the last divine weapon, the spear of unmaking. It was shaped from the last remnants of the mother's first fire, drawn from the heart of the oldest star. The process took centuries, measured only by the turning of galaxies. Each fragment of the spear burned away part of their essence. One by one, the first ones faded, giving their light to the weapon, until only Serath remained. When it was done, the spear gleamed with unbearable brilliance, its surface etched with runes that no mortal would ever read. It pulsed with the memory of the first flame and the sorrow of those who forged it. Serath stood before it, weak but unbroken. He raised it toward the heavens, and the stars answered with silence. Far below, in the abyss, where the second light still lingered, the ocean began to glow again. The pulse of its remaining heart quickened, unaware of what was coming. It dreamed of the mother, of the warmth it once sought, of the endless reaching for her love. In its dream, it was still her child, lost, afraid, but hopeful. Serath looked down upon the world and hesitated. The echoes circled him, their forms shimmering with quiet expectation. He knew that to strike would end the cycle, not only the second light's pain, but his own existence, and perhaps the very song of the stars.
The world had changed in ways even the gods could not predict. What was once endless light and echoing power had softened into a living stillness. Time itself had grown roots, spreading through the soil of the earth and the veins of the mountains. Days no longer burned, they breathed. The oceans, which once raged like wild thoughts, now swayed with a rhythm that even the gods could not hurry. The old gods had withdrawn. Their temples were half buried beneath moss and silence. Statues of their faces leaned into rivers, their eyes worn smooth by centuries of water. Yet the world did not forget them. The wind still carried their names. The fire still danced in their shapes. They were no longer rulers, no longer feared, but remembered. And memory, as they discovered, was a deeper kind of immortality. Then, from the dust and the ash of their creation, something new had begun to stir. A creature small enough to be crushed beneath a falling leaf, yet bold enough to name the stars. Humans. They walked the forests where gods once battled, built fires where lightning once fell. They saw the sky, vast, merciless, and instead of bowing, they dreamed of reaching it. They were born without wings, yet they carried inside them a spark that made them rise anyway. The goddess of rivers was the first to notice. She had spent eons drifting, listening to the sighs of stones and the songs of rain, but this sound was different. Laughter. She followed it, curious, until she saw them, a group of mortals dancing by the water, their firelight flickering against her reflection. They were clumsy, loud, and utterly alive. She watched as one of them, a child, looked into the river and spoke to it as if it were her, as if it could hear. It could. And for the first time in countless ages, the goddess smiled. Elsewhere, the god of winds circled high above the plains. He had been thunder once, fury given form, but now he drifted without purpose. He had seen storms rise and die, oceans swallow cities, mountains crumble into sand. None of it moved him anymore. But then he felt something strange, resistance. Below, a mortal was walking against the storm, pushing forward through his howling winds. Each step was slow, each breath heavy, yet the human did not stop. The god sent gust after gust, but still the figure moved on. When the mortal finally fell, it was not from fear, it was from exhaustion. The god hovered there for a long while, watching the small body lie still on the earth. Then, with a sigh like a tired sky, he gentled his breath and carried the human home. He did not understand why. Across the world, the mortals built stories. They told of a river that listened, a wind that watched, a light that had once covered the heavens. They didn't remember names, but they remembered feelings, awe, wonder, longing. In their words, the gods were reborn, but not as they once were. Now they existed in songs and fireside whispers, in the spaces between dreams. And then came the first dreamer. A young woman, asleep beneath a starlit sky, saw visions of the world before time, of fire and mist, of laughter that could move mountains, of hands that shaped stars. When she woke, she spoke of a first dawn that would return, when gods and mortals would walk together again. The dream spread through the villages like a secret wind. It gave warmth to the hopeless and light to those who feared the dark. The goddess of rivers began to visit the villages at night, hidden in the fog. She watched the mortals sing her name without knowing it, offering flowers to the river without realizing they touched her skin. The god of winds listened from afar, his storms quieter now, his tempests soft as sighs. Even the stars, who had once been indifferent, leaned closer to hear the stories told below.
The mortals spoke of creation as though it were still happening. And perhaps it was. Because with every song, every whispered prayer, the world reshaped itself. Not through divine will, but through belief. The gods, who had once thought themselves eternal, began to understand that eternity was not measured in years or temples. It was measured in memory. One night, the goddess of rivers stood at the edge of the sea. The god of winds joined her, his form flickering between cloud and shadow. They said nothing for a long time. The stars shimmered above them, quiet witnesses to their thoughts. "They have taken our place," she finally said. "No," he replied, the word a low rumble across the waves. "They have given us one." The sea shimmered with her tears, not sadness, something softer. Gratitude, perhaps, or peace. Far below them, the mortals slept. Their dreams were full of light. In those dreams, gods still walked the earth, not as masters, but as companions. The first dawn still rose again and again in the hearts of those who believed it could. And so the cycle continued. The gods dreamed of humans. The humans dreamed of gods. And the world, caught between both dreams, breathed. It was not paradise. It was not perfection. It was something rarer. Balance. And as night deepened over the quiet world, the stars began to hum again, the same song that had started everything, the song of creation, of memory, of beginnings that never truly end. The world slept under its own heartbeat. The gods rested, no longer lonely, and the mortals, fragile and brief, carried the light forward, unaware that in their smallness they had become infinite. The dream of the world deepened. Centuries passed like sighs. The gods faded into whispers, and yet their presence clung to the air like the warmth of a fire long after it dies. Forests grew where temples once stood. Mountains rose where oceans had once stretched, and the stars, ancient, patient, watched it all unfold without judgment. Humanity had learned much. They built villages that turned into cities, and cities that turned into empires. They wrote their stories in stone, painted them on walls, carved them into the bones of the earth. But even as their hands reached higher, as towers climbed toward the heavens, something within them still remembered the hush of the divine, a silence that felt like home. On the night of the 1,000th moon, the veil between the mortal and the eternal thinned. The goddess of rivers felt it first, a pulse beneath her waters, old and familiar. She drifted from her slumber, her reflection rippling through every stream and tide. The god of winds stirred as well, his breath trembling through mountain passes and empty deserts. They felt the call of something they had not sensed in ages, awakening. Far below them, a human boy stood at the edge of a great lake. He had never seen a god, never prayed, never believed much in anything, and yet he came every night to this place, drawn by something he could not explain. That night, the water glowed faintly beneath the stars. The wind grew still. The boy knelt, touched the surface, and for a moment, the world paused. The reflection that stared back at him was not his own. It was older, vast, and it smiled.
The goddess saw through him, saw his heartbeat, his breath, the quiet courage that came from being small in a vast world and choosing to love it anyway. She saw in him everything the gods had forgotten: wonder,
that fragile, reckless belief that something beautiful could still exist. From that single touch, a ripple spread across the waters. The stars above seemed to bend, listening, and the gods, scattered across the corners of existence, felt it. A memory, a whisper, a spark. The god of winds descended from the mountains, his form shimmering like heat above the desert. He found her by the lake, her light flickering softly across the waves. "They dream again," he said. She nodded, her voice quiet as rain. "And in their dreams, we live." The boy looked up at the sky, unaware of the divine eyes upon him. He felt something stir in his chest, not fear, not awe, but belonging, as if the stars themselves had been waiting for him to notice them. He closed his eyes, and the wind brushed against his skin like a hand made of memory. That night, when he slept, he dreamed of a world before time. He saw fire blooming from darkness, rivers carving mountains, gods breathing life into the void. He saw their laughter, their loneliness, their longing. When he woke, the dream stayed with him, not as a vision, but as a feeling. He became a storyteller. He spoke of things no mortal should have known, of the first dawn, the slumbering gods, the creation that never ended. People came from distant lands to hear him speak. They did not ask where he had learned these tales. They simply listened, and in their listening, they believed. The gods watched in silence, invisible to mortal eyes, and for the first time in eons, they laughed. A quiet, weary, joyful sound. Because the stories, their stories, were alive again, not through worship, but through wonder. And as the boy's voice carried through the night, something changed in the stars. They shimmered brighter, as though remembering who they once were. The river flowed slower, as if savoring every reflection. The wind moved with care, like a hand turning the pages of a fragile book. For the gods had realized a truth older than light itself, that to be remembered is to exist, but to be loved, even by mortals, is to live forever. And somewhere, beyond time, the first dawn began to rise again, not in the sky, but in every heart that dared to dream. The centuries folded upon themselves like pages in a book too ancient to close. The world had become a vast mosaic of light and shadow, kingdoms rising and fading, languages born and forgotten, faiths built on the bones of older dreams. Yet beneath all the noise and triumph, the slow rhythm of the gods still pulsed, deep within the earth's quiet heart. The goddess of rivers had learned to move unseen. She no longer shimmered as silver light, no longer called attention to her divinity. She flowed through cities disguised as simple water, the fountains of marketplaces, the streams beneath bridges, the rain that brushed across weary faces. Mortals touched her every day without knowing, whispering their hopes and grief into her current, and she listened. She felt their confusion, their endless search for meaning among things that refused to stay still. Empires crumbled faster than faith could rebuild them. The mortals had forgotten the names of gods, yet they built new ones daily. Gold, stone, power, and desire. Still, she did not grieve. Every generation forgot, and yet every child born near her banks would someday stop and listen to the water. And in that silence, the memory of the first dawn whispered again. The god of winds had changed as well.
He was no longer a storm, no longer rage. He had become the space between things, the pause between words, the stillness before a tear falls. He moved through cities at night, unseen, carrying the faint scent of the sea into places when no one remembered the ocean. Sometimes he lingered beside a candle just to watch its flame shiver. He found beauty in that trembling, the way it held both defiance and fragility. One evening in a quiet corner of a forgotten city, the goddess of rivers and the god of winds met again. They stood upon a broken aqueduct, the water murmuring softly below. Above them, the stars shimmered faintly, dulled by centuries of smoke. They dream less. They dream differently. Not of us, but of what we once meant. And what did we mean? He was silent for a long time. The wind circled the ruins, touching the stones as though searching for words older than language. We were the space they filled with wonder. Without us, they learned to fill it themselves. The river shimmered faintly, rippling beneath the starlight. "Then perhaps we have not vanished," she said. "We have become them." Across the city, a child stirred in her sleep. She dreamed of oceans she had never seen, skies filled with ancient light, and voices older than her name. The gods felt it, that fragile spark of belief, and it was enough to still their sorrow. The boy who had once dreamed by the lake was long gone, his voice carried into legend, but his stories remained, reshaped by time, retold in markets and around fires, changed by every tongue that spoke them. The gods' names were gone, but the feeling stayed, that sense of something vast, gentle, and watching. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world was half asleep, the river and the wind moved together through the empty streets. They brushed over doorways and windows, tracing the outlines of sleeping faces. In the dreams of mortals, they planted fragments, a silver wave, a breath of light, a half-remembered voice calling from far away. And as the stars began to fade, the goddess whispered to the wind, "They will forget us again." "Yes," he said softly, "and then they will remember." The first light crept over the horizon, pale and hesitant. The wind carried it over the roofs, and the river caught its reflection. The city stirred, unaware that gods had walked its veins through the night. The day began. The gods faded once more into silence, but somewhere in that silence, a mortal heart stirred and dreamed.
The stars had grown old, their fires dim and thoughtful. Time, that patient sculptor, had worn down mountains, swallowed empires, and quieted even the names once carved in stone. Yet through it all, the gods lingered, unseen, not in the heavens, but in the unseen corners of human hearts. They had become silence, and in that silence, they found meaning. The goddess of rivers now moved through veins of silver, deep beneath the earth. Her waters had become memories, carrying fragments of everything the world had ever been. She could taste the laughter of the first mortals in her current, the salt of their tears, the ash of forgotten cities. The weight of ages pressed upon her, yet it did not crush her, it shaped her into something gentler. One night, Far above her hidden flow, a storm gathered. The god of winds had returned from the edge of the world, that thin horizon where sky dissolved into nothingness. He had traveled beyond the reach of human sight, through deserts of stars and endless night. What he had seen changed him. He descended over the world in silence, not as tempest, but as breath. His wind brushed against oceans, forests, and mountains, awakening echoes that had slept for millennia. Even the stars trembled faintly, as if recognizing him. He found her again, the river, older now, slow and deep. She rose to meet him in mist and moonlight. Between them, time seemed to still. "You've been gone too long," she said softly. "I had to see what lies beyond the edge," he murmured. "I thought perhaps I would find our end there." "And did you?" "No," he said. "Only more beginnings." She laughed quietly, a sound like ripples over stone. "Then nothing truly ends, does it? Nothing that is remembered." They stood together at the mouth of the sea, where the river met the vastness of the deep. The sky above them was scattered with stars, billions of suns, each one a story still being told. Beneath that endless light, they felt small, and for gods, that was almost divine. In the mortal world, humanity had changed beyond recognition. They had built towers so tall that clouds brushed against their windows, sent their voices across the void, reached for the stars themselves. They had become creators of art, of machines, of worlds within their minds. They no longer prayed to rivers or winds. They prayed to progress, to dreams, to each other. And yet, every so often, when a child stared at the night sky and wondered who first lit the stars, or when someone wept beside the sea and felt something unseen weeping with them, the gods awoke. Only for a moment, a single breath, a flicker, but it was enough. The goddess watched these moments ripple through her waters. "They've learned to create as we once did," she said. "Perhaps better." The god of wind smiled faintly. "That was always the plan. We were never meant to rule, only to begin." As dawn approached, the light began to change, not the cold light of morning, but a soft golden glow that seemed to rise from the earth itself. The air shimmered, the rivers brightened, the mountains sang with a sound too deep for mortal ears. It was happening again. The first dawn was returning, not the same as before, but reborn through memory and love and time. It did not break across the sky this time. It bloomed within every living thing. The gods could feel it, a heartbeat that belonged to all creation. And for the first time in eternity, they understood. The first dawn had never ended. It had only waited for humanity to remember the light that was already theirs. The wind stirred gently, carrying the scent of rain and life and old beginnings. The river flowed faster, laughing softly as it met the sea. "They don't need us anymore," she whispered. The wind sighed, content. "That means we did our part." And so the gods faded again, not in sorrow, but in peace. Their voices became the rustle of leaves, the hush of waves, the breath before sleep. The stars pulsed softly above, eternal witnesses to a world that no longer feared the dark. The mortals dreamed on, building their tomorrows upon the myths of yesterday. And somewhere, beyond all time, the first dawn continued, endless, gentle, and alive. The world exhaled, the night rested. And in the quiet heartbeat of creation, the story, as always, began again.
Beyond the ashen plains, where the last temples had turned to dust, the horizon no longer ended. It unraveled. The world that once had edges now spilled into itself, folding like water into an unseen sea. The ancient fires of the gods were gone. Only faint blue embers drifted upward, dissolving into the breath of night. The wanderer of shadows, the last mortal whose heart still carried the warmth of life, crossed what used to be the borders of creation. His steps left no sound, yet the ground remembered him. Faint ripples formed beneath each footfall, as if reality itself tried to keep the memory of movement. He walked through the remnants of skies, where constellations had fallen like rain. Stars lay half-buried in the soft black dust, glowing with the color of lost thoughts. He touched one, and it pulsed faintly, showing him a reflection not of himself, but of the first dawn, the day the gods had spoken light into being. That light, so pure and fragile, now trembled within his hand, begging to return somewhere it no longer knew. He placed it in the sky again, just one spark. Yet the void shifted, like something immense had turned its head. The silence that ruled the heavens stirred, uneasy, as if it had forgotten why it was there. From the depths beneath, an ocean began to rise, not of water, but of memory. Every drop shimmered with scenes long buried, battles of flame, voices of gods, the laughter of mortals building their first cities. The sea was vast and soundless, and as it swelled, it devoured what remained of the horizon. The wanderer stood still, watching the tide of remembrance climb the edges of the world. He saw faces forming in the waves, familiar yet distant, the creator's eyes, the dreamer's smile, the warrior's scream. Every myth, every legend, every forgotten story drifted by, neither alive nor dead. Above him, the heavens cracked open, not with thunder, but with calm light. The shards of broken stars began to fall, slow as snow, melting before they touched the ground. He reached out his hand again, and one landed upon his palm. It didn't burn. It wept. A single tear of the universe, too tired to shine any longer. And there, in the soft hum of dissolving creation, the wanderer finally understood. Silence was never the end. It was the breath between words, the space between worlds. The gods had not died. They had only fallen asleep, buried beneath the tide of human forgetting. He stepped into the rising ocean. The water embraced him like a memory finding its way home. The deeper he went, the warmer it became, until the world above vanished completely.
Beyond the ashen plains, where the last temples had turned to dust, the horizon no longer ended, it unraveled. The world that once had edges now spilled into itself, folding like water into an unseen sea. The ancient fires of the gods were gone. Only faint blue embers drifted upward, dissolving into the breath of night. The wanderer of shadows, the last mortal whose heart still carried the warmth of life, crossed what used to be the borders of creation. His steps left no sound, yet the ground remembered him. Faint ripples formed beneath each footfall, as if reality itself tried to keep the memory of movement. He walked through the remnants of skies where constellations had fallen like rain. Stars lay half buried in the soft black dust, glowing with the color of lost thoughts. He touched one, and it pulsed faintly, showing him a reflection not of himself, but of the first dawn, the day the gods had spoken light into being. That light, so pure and fragile, now trembled within his hand, begging to return somewhere it no longer knew. He placed it in the sky again, just one spark. Yet the void shifted, like something immense had turned its head. The silence that ruled the heavens stirred, uneasy, as if it had forgotten why it was there. From the depths beneath, an ocean began to rise, not of water, but of memory. Every drop shimmered with scenes long buried, battles of flame, voices of gods, the laughter of mortals building their first cities. The sea was vast and soundless, and as it swelled, it devoured what remained of the horizon. The wanderer stood still, watching the tide of remembrance climb the edges of the world. He saw faces forming in the waves, familiar yet distant. The creator's eyes, the dreamer's smile, the warrior's scream. Every myth, every legend, every forgotten story drifted by, neither alive nor dead. Above him, the heavens cracked open, not with thunder, but with calm light. The shards of broken stars began to fall, slow as snow, melting before they touched the ground. He reached out his hand again, and one landed upon his palm. It didn't burn. It wept, a single tear of the universe too tired to shine any longer. And there, in the soft hum of dissolving creation, the wanderer finally understood. Silence was never the end. It was the breath between words, the space between worlds. The gods had not died. They had only fallen asleep, buried beneath the tide of human forgetting. He stepped into the rising ocean. The water embraced him like a memory finding its way home. The deeper he went, the warmer it became, until the world above vanished completely.
He fell for what felt like centuries through layers of glimmering air that pulsed like living tissue. The hollow sky stretched into 1,000 shifting colors, veins of light running through its depths as though the cosmos itself were a sleeping giant, stirring from within. The wanderer did not crash. He landed softly, sinking into a surface that was neither solid nor fluid, a translucent plane where each step rippled with slow golden fire. Beneath it, shapes moved, faint and colossal, outlines of mountains, rivers, and creatures that had not yet been born. This was the underflesh of the world, the pulse beneath existence, where ideas grew before becoming real. He began to walk again, though there was no path. Every movement drew lines of light that spread outward, forming landscapes that vanished as quickly as they appeared. With each thought, he could feel creation bending, reshaping, like a reflection deciding to exist without its mirror. The air was heavy with a low hum. It wasn't sound, it was the memory of sound, vibrating through the bones of the universe. The wanderer pressed his hand against the glowing plane, and the hum deepened. He saw visions within the light, the gods crafting mountains with their breath, mortals sculpting hope from ash, the first dawn rising from an ocean that remembered nothing. And through it all, veins of radiant silver ran, immense arteries connecting every star, every dream, every heartbeat of the world. They pulsed together in slow rhythm, and in that rhythm he recognized something terrifyingly familiar. It matched his own heart. For a moment he understood. He was no longer merely in creation, he was part of its pulse. The universe, stripped of gods and memory, had begun to weave itself anew around him. He watched as the silver veins brightened, reaching upward, piercing the hollow sky above. They spread into constellations, rewriting the heavens. Yet something resisted. In the distance, a shadow moved beneath the glowing plain, vast, slow, and ancient. It was the shape of something that had refused to fade, a remnant of the first silence, slumbering in the roots of reality. The wanderer felt its gaze even through the layers of light. It was not anger that came from it, but recognition. The silence had known him once, before names, before form. It watched now as he trespassed through the bones of its dream. The hum began to fracture. Light flickered, and the veins of creation dimmed as though the pulse itself hesitated. The air grew colder, the colors faded, the plain beneath his feet cracked, and the wanderer looked down into endless depth. Darkness threaded with faint sparks, like the veins of a sleeping god bleeding out into eternity. And as he stood above the fracture, the voice of the silence rose again, not loud, but infinite. All creation beats with the heart of its own undoing. The ground broke. He fell once more, but this time he was not alone. The veins followed him, streaming like ribbons of living light, wrapping around his form as the world folded inward. He was no longer falling through space, he was falling through time. He fell through centuries that had not yet happened. Each moment opened and closed around him like the blink of an eternal eye. Shapes passed, memories of futures, whispers of things that would one day call themselves real. The silver veins of creation still wrapped around him, glowing faintly, pulsing with a heartbeat that was no longer his own. At last he landed, not with sound, but with stillness. The place was not a place, more a pause within time itself. All around him stretched an endless plain of glass, and beneath it flowed rivers of starlight, winding through darkness like veins through skin. Each current shimmered with entire lives, entire worlds being born and fading within the same breath. In the distance, something rose, a vast shape, slow and patient, a heart. Not of flesh, but of light condensed into rhythm. It beat only once every 1,000 years, and each pulse rippled across the void, rewriting the pattern of existence. Every star, every memory, every echo in creation obeyed that rhythm. The wanderer stepped closer. With every beat, fragments of his past flickered around him. The gods he had seen, the silence he had felt, the endless sea that had once called him home. He reached the heart and laid his hand upon its surface.
It was warm, impossibly warm, like touching the moment before dawn. A voice rose within the rhythm, not divine, not human, simply inevitable. It said, "You are not the last of creation. You are its memory clothed in dust. The gods have not died, they have become the spaces between your thoughts." He felt himself unraveling, not dying, but spreading. His pulse merged with the pulse of the great heart. The light bled into him and threw him into everything else. The gods stirred again faintly within the corners of forgotten dreams. Oceans began to hum. Mountains exhale their first breath in eons. The stars blink awake, not as rulers, but as witnesses. And then time stopped resisting. It folded around the wanderer, wrapped him in the gentle weight of eternity. He was no longer falling, no longer walking. He was simply being, a breath within the breath of the cosmos. The heart of time slowed. One last pulse, one last note in the endless song. And with it, he understood. Every end is a translation, not an erasure. The silence was not death. It was the universe learning how to rest between words. The light began to fade, not in fear, but in peace. The world exhaled. The pulse dimmed. The rivers beneath the glass slowed to stillness. And in that stillness, a single spark remained, the memory of everything. It rose slowly, drifting upward through the endless sky, glowing brighter as it climbed. And when it reached the edge of creation, it split into 1,000 stars, scattering across the void, seeding dreams yet to be born. Part X, the last dream. The stars burn softly again, not loud, not cruel, just steady. The ocean of memory has turned into mist, the hollow sky now filled with constellations shaped by human hope. Somewhere within them, a faint heartbeat continues, the echo of the wanderer, now part of everything. The silence watches, calm and patient. It has learned not to take, only to hold. Between its pauses, new worlds begin to whisper themselves into being. And so the myth does not end. It breathes, it sleeps, it waits, like the night before the first dawn. Sleep now, traveler. You walk the same rhythm as the stars. Creation continues each time you dream.